I can still do the things that I used to do and continue doing them. And maybe I can even be better than I used to be if I just do the right things. And I think so often that what ends up happening when we have problems is that, and we talked a little bit about this, we get caught up in at addressing the symptom, not the cause.
That was Russell Pate. I agree with that 100%. So often we go to the symptom instead of addressing the root cause of whatever's happening with our health or wellness. Today we're talking feet, the foundation of it all.
It's the Health in the Real World podcast. It's time to start the show with Chris Janke as your host. Here to give you everything that you need when it comes to fitness strategies. We keep it simple and easy. It's your roadmap to get healthy. You don't need equipment and you don't need a gym. Just the right strategies to get you fit and trim.
Health in the Real World podcast brought to you by my book. It's on Amazon. It's called Help I Threw Out My Back. 4 workouts to ease muscle tension and develop core strength. The reason why this book is sponsoring today's episode is because when I was a kid, 14 years old, I bulged a disc in my lower back and it was related to my feet. I've sprained each ankle many, many times. That produced a very faulty foundation. I started compensating my hips, my lower back. Everything was out of alignment. And then all it took was a simple stretch before basketball practice. Yes, I said before. I wasn't even playing basketball. I was stretching before practice, and I threw out my back. So, without further ado, Russell Pate. We're here today with Russell Pate, and he is sorry, Russell, what is your official title? I know the shoe... Podorthist. So your company is called the Shoe Doctor. And, well, first, Russell, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, Chris.
So I want to start today with kind of the elevator pitch for the value of feet. And I really like how you say this when you compare it to our teeth.
You should treat your feet as good as you treat your teeth. And a lot of people would do that, but they don't know how. And so I'm the guy that shows them how to do that.
Right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's very, nobody would argue that you need to take care of your feet. And I really like how you compare that to your teeth. And it sort of sparks a visual in my head of how I take care of my teeth. It's like, okay, well, if he means that I need to take care of my feet like I take care of my teeth, that should mean that there's some sort of daily care.
Right.
And then periodically I check in with somebody to make sure it's, I'm kind of going the right direction. Right. How does that look on a specific level for you?
Most people that come in and see me, it's kind of like if you go back, let's say 75 years ago, where people were walking around with missing and black teeth, and the dentists have done an amazing job educating us.
Yes.
And I think my industry, the foot care industry, has done an absolute horrible job educating people, and all they do is wait till equivalent of a root canal, and then you come in, and so most people that come to my office should have seen me 15-20 years ago. And I think it's kind of the experience that you had when you came in and saw me. Your feet really didn't bother you, but
right.
We found some issues.
Right. Exactly.
And we found some issues, and once we found the issues, kind of like, oh, I have some back pain that that's kind of been a problem. We found that your feet were out of alignment. So it's important. So let me get back to your question. So it's just kind of a side note there. So I like what you were saying. The brushing and flossing. I mean, obviously, we do that every day, and then we go and see the dentist, twice a year. I think coming to see me probably once a year is enough. I do have some patients that like to come in twice a year, and that's completely up to them. But as far as general care, looking at wearing the proper shoes is really, really critical. And one of the things that people have kind of gotten into kind of this minimalist, not barefooting. And the problem with that is that we're walking, originally back in the caveman days, we were walking on sand and dirt and grass. And so we kind of got this kind of natural orthotic or arch support. Now, if you look around, we're, everywhere is hard surfaces.
Yeah.
Our homes, our work, they even run marathons now on pavement.
Yeah.
And so we need to think that pounding, that our feet pay, and then it also kind of gets me into the three arches of your feet. Most people don't know that you have three arches.
Right.
And you have you have the heel, the big toe, the little toe, and so wearing shoes that give you proper support and the right size and shape is
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And to give everyone a visual, if you imagine the three arches, right, is like you showed, right? You have your heel, your big toe, and your little toe, and you have just the triangle of arches between the three, right? And
right.
If you think about how structurally sound that is, that's exactly how the Romans built their cities, right? They had archways everywhere because the arch is such a strong support mechanism. And that right. was very interesting when I was in there, and it was my outer arch, right? On the pinky side, I think it was completely collapsed.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah. I think this is interesting too, because I brought this up to you at the end of our session. I'm a big fan conceptually of the barefoot movement. However, right. This is how I explain it to people. They say, should I walk around barefoot? I say, well, that depends on a lot of things. One, what is the condition of your foot now? And you put it perfectly. Like if your foot is collapsed, that's basically an injury. So you're walking around barefoot, no support on an injured foot, in a sense, on a ground that's completely hard and flat that provides no variance for those muscles. So the reason why I'm a big fan of it conceptually, though, and in theory, and something to aspire to, is that I almost see it like this: like, okay, fix the foot, fix the imbalances of the foot, right. Restore those three arches, and then do your barefoot walking on the grass, on the sand, right. on the soft dirt, and right. And actually add that as almost like a fitness component, right? If you say like, right. okay, I just did my workout, now I'm going to go to the park and walk around for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or something like
right.
that.
Absolutely. And there are, some, exercises that you can do, but probably one of the best exercises you can do is walking in the sand.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of a run. I have customers, that, people that go on a, tropical vacation, and everybody parts gets a vacation except for your feet.
Right. And your feet are working like
they're working. If you're walking in soft sand, it's you can feel it. You can really feel it. So in the grass you can get a similar thing, on the grass too. But I like what you're saying, with that, and because you need to get your feet healthy to begin with, and to really know if they're healthy, is to come in and have, the 3D foot scan that we did for you. Yeah. I think you're probably a little bit surprised that, your feet weren't in better. I don't know. What was your reaction when you saw it?
Well, I've struggled with those kind of hammer toes my whole life, that they're just a lot of tightness. Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm absolutely convinced that when I bulged a disc in my lower back when I was 13, which is what led me down the road to finding the type of training that I do now. It's more core mm-hmm. and flexibility, balance work. Right. But I'm convinced that the reason why my back went out is because my feet were all jacked up.
Yeah.
So, I've sprained each one of my ankles at least 10 times.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Basketball, football, soccer, and just like never really, like a 14-year-old sprains his ankle, like he just wants to get back out on the court as fast as possible. Like I didn't care. I just said, it doesn't hurt anymore. I'm going to go back out there.
Right.
And not really caring about what the long-term ramifications were. So, but even knowing all that, I was still a little bit surprised.
Okay. Yeah. It is. And I just really encourage people to do that. I mean, and I think I used it with you, is it's so often we know that when we go to the dentist and the dentist says, hey, you got a cavity, most people don't say, hey, I think I'll wait till it really starts hurting or start feeling it, but it's the technology that I have, it's been around for 20 years, but it's just, it's not in the mainstream.
Yeah.
And I would really like to get it into the mainstream and have, the 3D scanner be, part of your physical. You step on there and see if your feet are, if the three arches are there. Then you'd have to, refer them to, someone like me to be actually, make the orthotics and, kind of do the next step. But it would be a screening.
Yeah. Well, I think, just as an announcement to anybody who's watching, listening to this, who's in the San Francisco Bay Area, Sacramento, anywhere in Northern California, go see Russell. This guy knows what he's doing. That appointment was amazing. I left there very confident that my feet were gonna be taken care of. That you went through and that measuring device and it's showing the contours of the feet, and then you map it 3-dimensionally on your computer. It was amazing. It was very, very thorough and very professional and very well done.
Oh,
so
nice. Let me just go through and describe it a little bit, and you can kind of, because I think just for people that that are listening to be able to understand. So what it is, it's a 500 pegs that are on a bladder that actually come up, and then I had Chris step into it, and so it's a little bit like, for the older people, the kind of the toy we used to have, we kind of put our hands in with the pegs or our face and kind of created an image.
Yeah.
And then that's connected to a computer. So you actually get a pressure map of your feet and a 3D image. And then I do a standing and sitting scan. And if you have healthy feet, those should be very similar. And in Chris's case, they weren't. So then we need to, look at doing the next step of making some computer generated orthotics. Is that?
Yeah.
I think that was a pretty good description of what.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was interesting too, and exactly the case with me. When I look down at my feet and I'm sitting, there's no load on the feet, and so there's no, there's nothing forcing it to kind of deform in a way, right? Whereas when I stand up, I weigh, almost 200 pounds, and then the feet can't maintain that load properly, right? And so they just kind of collapse. The arches collapse. So what's one of the most important things that somebody could do? Let's say they're planning on going to see you, but not quite yet, or maybe they're not going in for a couple weeks or months. What can somebody do right now to really take care of their feet? Like, do you have any exercises or stretches, any recommendations?
Well, I have a couple things. One, I have a couple exercises, and then we can talk a little bit about shoes, because shoes really do matter.
Yeah.
So first, let me just talk about the exercise, and one of them is kind of a very traditional one where you're putting the towel on the floor and kind of pulling
with the toes, like kind of scrunching it, right?
Scrunching and you could start out doing that on tile or on hardwood floor, and then if you want to graduate, you can put on carpet. Really makes it a little bit and I recommend doing that. When you're watching TV, when listening to music, and so so you kind of have time, to kind of take time to do that. The other thing that you can do is, and you can do this even when you're, at a meeting, on a Zoom call, is put your feet on the ground and try to press your toes, into the ground. And so and then it's, kind of hold it to a count of 5. And press it, and then you can kind of, it's like anything else. You know better than I do, but you want to continue to kind of change it up a little bit. Increase the reps, increase the intensity, so you're not constantly doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I like, now this is good for people that are having foot pain or plantar fasciitis or anything like that, is a lacrosse ball. Take a lacrosse ball and roll it, and it's kind of like giving yourself, kind of a self massage. And again, you can do that while you're watching TV, or listening to music, or something like that. Or even keep it, if you're sitting at the desk, most of the day, take your shoes off, and you can kind of, roll your feet. So those are some help, self-help tips.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that you can do that. And then the biggest problem that most people make these days is when they're having foot problems, they wear softer shoes. And you really want to think of foot problems just like when you're having back problems. So Chris, when you're having back problems, what do? You sleep on a firmer mattress, not a softer mattress.
Right.
And somehow I think about this a lot because I'm always thinking, where do things come from? But it seems like it's pretty in the general population, information that, if you have back problems, you sleep on a firm mattress, and you put a little bit of pillow top, but for some reason, when we have foot problems, we wear softer and softer and softer shoes. So it's kind of like going down this rabbit hole that I call it. And what ends up happening, it's like stepping on a soft bed or on a trampoline. You have this kind of, whoa, and what's happening is you're constantly putting your lower extremities, and your core in stress because it's got this, kind of wavy motion, going. And so wearing firmer, more stable shoes, I've had people that, weren't in my area or weren't planning on coming to see me for, some time. And, have recommended more stable shoes, and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel better.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. Yeah. And going back to that whole concept of like, if your feet are misshapen or, your arches are collapsed or you have something going on with the toes, that's the equivalent of an injury. So you're taking a maladapted foot into day-to-day life when it's not ready, to do these things,
Right.
So it's almost like the equivalent, I would say, like, taking someone who's never worked out before into a CrossFit class, just because that CrossFit class would completely wreck them. But that doesn't mean necessarily that CrossFit's bad. It just means that person is not ready for it. So, the barefoot walking on the sand, on the grass, I would agree with you. I would stay, if you have foot issues, I would stay away from that for now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's build you back up. So what about, let's get to shoes. What 1 or 2, 3 things would you say you want to look for in a shoe that's going to make sure it fits properly?
Okay. The first thing, is I always tell people, and people don't even really think about this, is that the shape of your foot needs to match the shape of the shoe. Yeah. And that is more important really than even size and the width and the length of the shoe. If you start out with something that's this shape, it doesn't matter what size or what width, it's never going to fit. And so the shoe manufacturers give us this illusion that every shoe is made for every foot, and that's not the case. And we, down the line, we could talk about it a little bit more. And I actually have this whole exercise where you can actually trace your foot and put your shoes on top of the tracing and kind of see, and we could go through that some other time in detail and show people how to do that. But it's a great way to kind of begin to kind of understand the shape, because most of the time people that have narrow feet kind of know they have narrow feet. People have wide feet have it, but they don't seem to be put it together when you go to buy shoes. It's just like, oh, I'll just stretch these out.
Right.
So that's the the first part is the shape. The second is doing the measurement. When you came to see me, we used the Braddock device, which so many stores don't use the measuring device anymore. They just say, if you came in to see me, most places they'd say, Chris, what size do you wear? And you say, 12 or 11. And so it just perpetuates your misfitting. Right. And then the shoes you put on, they fit how they always, fit, whether they're, really extremely loose or extremely tight, or, maybe they fit well, but and the other thing that is that shoes are not, it's like clothing. I think we talked a little bit about this, is that, I wear, a large, sometimes extra large shirt. It doesn't mean that I'm a different size. It's just the clothing fits differently. And I'm sure it's the same for you. And so shoes, I think you were wearing like a 12, you were like 11 and a half, 12, but so it's going to, vary, depending on the shoe size. So, and the big thing that happens these days is a lot of people are mail ordering. And so they usually pick one size. And so I always tell people, get someone that does returns. It has free returns, and and order at least 2, sometimes 3. Kind of framing where you think you are, and then maybe the bigger in size or smaller size on each side, and then so you can end up getting a better fit.
That's a great idea. I think even just if people listening, watching do no other things other than that, I think just that's a great idea, to go to a place that takes returns and just order a couple. A lot of it, it depends on the brand, right? Some brands run more narrow, some are wider.
There's the self-serve stores, and then there is really still the full service stores, and a lot of them they usually call them comfort shoe stores. And so your people that are listening could Google and say comfort shoe store near me, and look and find someone that actually, where it's not just high school and college students that are just kind of passing through, where they actually have professionals that that have been there for a while and actually know how to use a measuring device. It is what's called a Braddock, and some people never even seen it. And if you go into a store and they don't have a Braddock and they're not measuring your feet, it's probably not. You're not going to get a really good experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Russell, we're getting close to the end. I wanted to end with a question that is a little bit unrelated to feet directly, but it does inform how we view our health in general, and that is this. So let's say you were invited to a college graduation or a high school graduation, and you're the keynote speaker. You can weave health into the talk, but your big picture talk is about generally how to view what makes a good life. And of course, health is one component of that, and foot health is one component of greater health. So we got very specific in our podcast today. So we're going like really big picture to end this today.
Okay.
So what, in like a minute or two, what would you tell those graduates as far as advice, recommendations?
Well, I think our health is extremely important. You and I had a little bit talk when we were in about kind of aging gracefully, and I think that's really what all your business is about. Is we can still. I mean, my attitude is, I can still do the things that I used to do and continue doing them, and maybe I can even be better than I used to be if I just do the right things. And I think so often that what ends up happening when we have problems is that, and we talked a little bit about this, we get caught up in at addressing the symptom, not the cause. And I think that is so true. I mean, we can even expand it throughout, out health and, in our lives and everything, that so often we get so hung up in looking at the symptoms. We can even get into relationships between, male, female, or even friends, is like, there's it's a being a symptom, into symptom, but what's the root cause? And I always looking at that, what's the root cause? When you come in to see me, I don't do drug, I don't prescribe drugs. It's all very physical. So it's being able to look at boiling it down to say, okay, this is a symptom, but do we want to treat the symptom, or do we want to treat the cause? And so I think that if I had the opportunity that, I would really drive it home to always go beyond the symptom and look at the cause.
Wow. Thank you for that, Russell. So everybody, Russell Pate, Russell, tell everybody how to get in touch with you.
So a couple different ways. Best way is probably going to my website, which is the Shoe Doctor, and all the SHOE, and then doctor spelled out, and that's .biz. Or you can also, call me at 925-820-0220.
All right. Sounds great, Russell. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for listening to the Health in the Real World show. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below. Visit mycorebalance.com to learn more.